Welcome to our channel, Fluent Harbor. Today we're going to talk about why can I understand English easily but can't produce it when I need to speak. You watch an English movie without subtitles and you understand almost every line. You read an English article and it makes complete sense. You listen to a podcast and you follow the whole conversation. Then someone asks you a simple question in English, "How was your weekend?" And your mind goes blank. You know the words, you know the grammar, but nothing comes out. If this has happened to you, you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not doing anything wrong. Today, we're going to look at exactly why this happens, not a vague explanation. The real, research-backed reason your brain can understand a language but refuse to produce it. And then, we're going to fix it with steps you can start using today. Here is the first thing to understand. This is one of the most common experiences in language learning. It has a name. Researchers call it the gap between receptive and productive skill. Receptive skills are listening and reading, taking language in. Productive skills are speaking and writing, pushing language out. For almost every language learner in history, receptive skills grow faster than productive skills. This is not unique to English. It is not unique to you. It happens in every language, for every learner, in every country. Think about it this way. A person can recognize a song the moment they hear the first three notes. But that same person might not be able to play that song on a piano, even if they know music theory perfectly. Recognizing is not the same as producing. And that difference is exactly what's happening in your brain right now with English. Let's go deeper into why this gap exists. Because understanding the mechanism is what makes the fix actually work. When you listen or read, your brain is doing recognition. It's matching sounds or words to meanings you already have stored. This is a relatively passive process. Your brain has time. It has context. It has clues. If you miss one word, the sentence around it usually tells you what it meant anyway. Speaking is a completely different task. Your brain has to do production, and production has almost none of those advantages. When you speak, you have to choose the right word from memory in real time, put it in the right grammatical form, arrange it in the correct order, pronounce it correctly, and do all of this in under a second without stopping the conversation. That is a lot of simultaneous work. Linguists sometimes compare it to the difference between reading sheet music and performing it live on stage. Reading music is recognition. Performing it with no pause button in front of someone is production under pressure. There's a well-known idea in language research called the output hypothesis, developed by linguist Merrill Swain. Her research suggested something important. Simply listening to more English does not automatically build your ability to speak it. Speaking itself is what exposes the gaps in your knowledge and forces your brain to fill them. In other words, you don't get better at speaking by absorbing more input. You get better at speaking by speaking. It sounds almost too simple, but the research consistently supports it. This doesn't mean listening and reading are useless. They build the raw material your brain needs. But that raw material stays passive, sitting in storage until you force it into action through actual output. So why does it feel like a total block? Why does your mind go completely blank instead of just being a little slow? Two things are happening at the same time. First, automaticity. There's a difference between knowing a rule and being able to use it instantly. Researchers call these two different kinds of knowledge declarative knowledge. knowing that something is true, and procedural knowledge, being able to do it without thinking. You might know declaratively that the past tense of go is went. That's stored knowledge. But being able to produce went instantly, mid-sentence, while also thinking about your next 5 words, that requires procedural knowledge. And procedural knowledge is built only one way, through repeated, real-time practice, not through more studying, through more doing. This is very similar to learning to drive. You can memorize every rule in the driving manual. But the first time you're actually behind the wheel, in traffic, your brain is overloaded, because knowing the rule and executing it instantly under pressure are two different skills. Driving instructors don't expect you to be smooth after reading the manual. They expect you to become smooth after hours of actual driving. Speaking works the same way. Second, anxiety. There is a well-documented phenomenon in language learning called foreign language anxiety. It is specifically triggered by the fear of being judged, of making a mistake in front of someone, of sounding unintelligent in a language that isn't your first one. Here's the important part. Anxiety doesn't just make you feel uncomfortable. It actually blocks retrieval. Under stress, your brain prioritizes threat response over word retrieval. This is why you might speak perfectly fine alone in your room, rehearsing. But the moment a real person is in front of you, waiting, the words disappear. So the freeze you feel isn't a sign that you don't know English. It's the combination of underdeveloped automatic recall plus a stress response actively working against you at the exact moment you need words the most. Let's look at this pattern in a few other places, because once you see it clearly, it stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like a normal, fixable skill gap. Think about someone who has watched hundreds of hours of cooking shows. They understand every technique. They could explain how to properly sear a steak step by step in detail. But put them in a real kitchen with a hot pan and 30 seconds before it burns, and their hands hesitate. Not because they don't understand cooking, because understanding and doing are stored and trained differently in the brain. Or think about a sports fan who has watched thousands of hours of basketball. They understand strategy better than most casual players. But if you put them on the court, their body doesn't move the way their brain understands the game should move. Watching builds understanding. Playing builds performance. This exact pattern shows up even within your own first language. Many people can read a legal contract and understand every clause. But if you asked them to draft one from scratch, they'd struggle enormously, even though they're reading and writing the same native language they've spoken since childhood. Comprehension and production are simply different mental operations in any language, including your own. So when this happens to you in English, it isn't a sign that your English is bad. It's a sign that you've built strong receptive skill. And now your productive skill needs its own separate, deliberate training. That's genuinely good news. It means you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a very strong foundation that just needs to be activated. Now let's get practical. If speaking is a separate skill that needs its own training, here are 5 specific ways to train it, starting today. Yes, I'll 1. Shadowing. Pick a short audio clip, 20 to 30 seconds, of natural English speech. Play it, and speak along with it at the exact same time, copying the rhythm, the pauses, and the pronunciation as closely as you can. This trains your mouth and your real-time recall together. At the same time, your brain is processing meaning. Do this daily, even for 5 minutes. It builds the muscle memory that pure listening never touches. 2. Think out loud practice. For 10 minutes a day, describe your surroundings, your plans, or your day out loud in English alone, not writing it, speaking it. This feels awkward at first, and that's fine. The goal isn't to sound perfect. The goal is to force your brain to retrieve words in real time, in a low-pressure setting, without another person's judgment adding anxiety on top. 3. Stop translating in your head. If you're forming a sentence in your own language first and then translating it, you're adding an entire extra step that slows you down and increases the chance of freezing. Instead, try to attach English words directly to simple, everyday objects and actions. Skip the middle step. This takes practice, but every time you do it, you're building a more direct connection. 4. Get comfortable with mistakes on purpose. Set a rule for yourself. For the next week, when speaking English, you're not allowed to stop and correct yourself mid-sentence. Just keep going, even if it's wrong. Fluency researchers consistently find that learners who prioritize finishing the sentence over getting it perfect develop speaking speed faster than learners who pause to self-correct constantly. Accuracy can be refined later. Flow has to be built first. 5. Find low-stakes speaking reps. You don't need a native speaker or a classroom to start. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Record short voice memos describing your day and listen back. Join a low-pressure conversation exchange where everyone is a learner, so the anxiety of being judged by an expert is removed. The goal in this early stage is repetition, not perfection. The confidence comes after the repetition, not before it. None of these 5 techniques require moving to an English-speaking country, or having advanced grammar knowledge, or waiting until you feel ready. They simply require you to start producing language in small, repeated doses, starting now. Here is the idea to take with you. You didn't fail at learning English. You succeeded at building understanding. And now you're at the exact point where every learner in history has stood, the moment where understanding needs to be converted into action. Listening and reading gave you the raw materials. Speaking is the only thing that turns those materials into a skill you can actually use. So the next time you understand a full conversation but freeze when it's your turn to speak, remind yourself, this isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you've built one half of the skill extremely well, and now it's time to train the other half, the same way anyone trains any skill, through repetition, not through waiting. Start today. 5 minutes of shadowing, 10 minutes of thinking out loud. 1 sentence you don't correct. That's how the gap closes. Not all at once, 1 spoken sentence at a time,